It's my 10th birthday. The yard is filled with the joyful cries of children, the colorful splashes of balloons, and the sweet smell of cake. My parents decided to surprise me with a clown. There he was, a splash of color in the monotony of our suburban neighborhood, an artist of laughter with his baggy pants, bright nose, and painted smile. Everyone was laughing, everyone but me. There was something about him, something off. His eyes, vibrant and twinkling, didn't match the sorrow etched deeply into the creases around them. His smile seemed frozen, too wide to be natural, and those rubbery red lips were just a mask for something more sinister. But I brushed it off, attributing my feelings to the fear of clowns I'd always harbored. As the sun began to set, the children started to leave. The clown was packing his props into a rickety old suitcase. I watched him from my window. Just as he was about to leave, he looked up. Our eyes locked and he tipped his hat, that painted grin still plastered on his face. I tried to smile back, but all I could muster was a weak nod. That night, I woke up to a strange noise. My room was bathed in the soft glow of my unicorn nightlight, casting eerie shadows. I sat up, rubbing my sleepy eyes. The noise came again, a soft tapping. I turned my head and nearly screamed. There, pressed against the window, was the painted face of the clown. His painted grin seemed wider, his eyes twinkling with an unnatural gleam. Paralyzed by fear, I could do nothing but stare. The clown raised a gloved hand and tapped the window again. "Hello, little one," he whispered, his voice scratchy and soft, like sandpaper against silk. His words sent shivers down my spine. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness as my unicorn light flickered and died. I screamed and darted for the door, but it was jammed. I pounded on it, calling out for my parents. When I turned back, the clown was inside the room. He was tall, much taller than he was at the party. His painted grin had twisted into a snarl. He took a step forward, the sound echoing in the silent room. Fear coursed through my veins as I backed into a corner. The clown moved closer, his laughter echoing, mixing with my screams. His hands reached out. Those same hands that made balloons and magic earlier now felt monstrous. Just as he was about to touch me, my door burst open, my parents rushing in with wide eyes. The light from the hallway illuminated the room. The clown was gone, leaving no trace of his presence. My parents told me it was just a nightmare, but I knew what I had seen. From that day forward, every creak in the house, every shadow in the dark, every knock on the window made my heart race. Every night, I feared the return of the clown with the painted smile and twinkling eyes. The clown that was supposed to bring laughter but brought only fear.
I've always loved my job as a night watchman at the amusement park. There was something about the quiet serenity that only a sleeping park could offer. That was until they added the new attraction, the Hall of Laughs. I remember the day the delivery trucks arrived, carrying oversized crates filled with grotesque clown statues for the hall. I remember the chill that ran down my spine as they set them up. The clowns were unsettling, painted faces etched with horrifying grins that sent a shudder down even the bravest of spines. One clown stood out from the rest. It was bigger, more lifelike, with a shock of red hair and a maniacal grin that stretched too far across its face. Its eyes were the worst part. They were too real, too alive, always seeming to watch me. My job was to patrol the park, to ensure nothing was amiss. Every time I passed the hall, I would hear strange sounds, muffled laughter that seemed to echo through the empty corridors. Each time, the laughter seemed to come from the life-sized clown. One stormy night, the power in the park flickered and died, leaving me with only my flashlight to guide me. The walkie-talkie crackled with the static-filled voice of my supervisor, instructing me to check the main switchboard in the Hall of Laughs. I felt a lump in my throat but nodded, even though no one could see me. As I approached the hall, the laughter started again, this time louder, more manic. My hand trembled as I pushed open the creaking door. The beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, bouncing off the clown's face. Its grin seemed wider, more sinister in the half-light. I walked further in, trying to ignore the pounding in my chest. My flashlight beam caught the switchboard at the far end. As I moved towards it, my light slipped over the life-sized clown. I froze. The clown's head had tilted to the side. It was watching me. Dismissing it as my imagination, I rushed to the switchboard. As I fumbled with the switches, the laughter echoed again, sending a chill down my spine. I turned around, my heart stopped. The life-sized clown was inches away from me, its grin stretching into a snarl. I stumbled back, dropping my flashlight. The laughter roared, filling the hall. In the darkness, the clown moved, its jerky steps echoing in the silence. My heart pounded as I groped for the flashlight, its beam illuminating the empty space where the clown had stood. I ran, abandoning the switchboard. The clown's laughter followed me, filling the darkness. I made it out of the hall, slamming the door behind me. I could still hear the laughter as I raced to the security office. The power returned an hour later, the park lighting up. My supervisor, worried by my radio silence, found me shivering in the office. We checked the Hall of Laughs. The life-sized clown was back in its place, its head straight, its grin back to being just unsettling. Nothing was out of place, but something was definitely wrong. They didn't believe me, attributing my fear to the darkness and the storm. But I knew what I saw, and every night since then, the laughter is a bit louder, a bit closer. And in the corner of my eyes, the clown seems to move, its grin stretching into a snarl.
I've always been a loner, but my solitary existence took on a new dimension when I moved to a dilapidated farmhouse on the outskirts of town. I was drawn to its isolation, and the whispers about it being haunted only spurred my curiosity. That was before I found the clown doll. It was tucked away in the attic, buried beneath heaps of forgotten junk. A relic from the past, discarded and forgotten. It was a traditional porcelain clown doll, face painted white, with grotesque green eyes, a bulbous red nose, and an eerie smile. I figured it was an odd memento from the house's previous inhabitants and decided to keep it, setting it on my mantel. That night I woke up to a sound that sent chills down my spine. Laughter, soft, eerie, and echoing through the silent house. It seemed to be coming from downstairs. I picked up the baseball bat by my bedside, my heart pounding as I crept down the staircase. The laughter grew louder as I neared the living room, and then I saw it. The clown doll, no longer on the mantel but sitting in the middle of the room, its head tilted back in silent laughter. I recoiled in horror, my mind racing to make sense of what I was seeing. My thoughts were shattered by the sound of shattering porcelain. I whipped around to see another clown doll, identical to the first, crashing to the ground from seemingly nowhere. Its laughter filled the room, echoing off the walls, and in the moonlit room, I could swear the doll on the floor was slowly piecing itself back together. Panicked, I grabbed the original doll from the floor, its porcelain cold in my hands. The laughter stopped. Everything was silent again. But the silence was short-lived. Suddenly, the doll squirmed in my grip, its laughter resuming, louder and more chilling than before. I flung it away in terror. The night passed in a blur. The laughter never stopped, and by the time the sun rose, my house was filled with countless identical clown dolls, all laughing in eerie unison. When the first rays of sunlight filtered in, the dolls stopped laughing, their faces freezing in horrific smiles. And then they shattered, their fragments vanishing as if they were never there. The original clown doll was the only one left, sitting quietly on the mantel as if nothing had happened. But the memory of their laughter and those cold green eyes haunted me. In the light of day, I fled, leaving the farmhouse and its terrifying occupant behind. Even now, miles away, in the dead silence of the night, I can hear it sometimes. The eerie, chilling laughter of the clown dolls, a haunting reminder of the horrifying night I spent in the company of the clown from the attic.
The carnival had always been my sanctuary, a place of joy and laughter. From the dizzying carousel rides to the mouth-watering smell of caramel popcorn, it was my haven from the harsh realities of life. But the crown jewel of my carnival visits was always the clown shows. They were the embodiment of joy and merriment. That was until one fateful summer evening, the night when the new tent appeared. At the very edge of the carnival, past the usual thrum of excitement, there was a new addition. It was a large tent, jet black, contrasting sharply with the surrounding riot of colors. A wooden sign out front read, "Come see the world's most realistic robot clown." Intrigued by the sign, and with my fascination for clowns, I felt an irresistible pull towards the tent. Stepping inside, I was engulfed by a veil of darkness. The only source of light was a single spotlight shining down on the stage. In the spotlight stood the figure of a clown, taller and more imposing than any I'd seen before. Its face was painted in vibrant colors, and despite being a robot, it held an expression of twisted delight that sent a shiver down my spine. The performance started with the usual clown antics, juggling, pratfalls, squirting flowers. It was mesmerizing, a marvel of technology and artistry. But as the show progressed, something seemed to shift. The clown's movements became erratic, its painted smile seemed to stretch wider, and its eyes, those large, glittering eyes, seemed to spark with a disturbing intensity. Suddenly, in the midst of its act, it stopped. It slowly turned and pointed a gloved finger directly at me. My heart pounded in my chest as the clown's painted eyes stared into mine. In those mechanical eyes, I saw a glint of something living, something evil. Its voice, once jovially comical, now sounded threatening. "You there, would you like to join me for the grand finale?" Nervously, I stepped onto the stage. The clown presented a bouquet of flowers, its eyes never leaving mine. As I reached out to accept them, our hands briefly touched. It wasn't cold and mechanical as I expected. It was warm, fleshy, too human. The lights went out, immersing us in complete darkness. The last thing I saw before the blackout was the glowing, manic grin of the clown. When the lights returned, the clown had disappeared. The audience erupted into applause, thinking it was all part of the act. But a sense of dread settled in the pit of my stomach. I could still feel the clown's stare, its laughter echoing in my ears. Returning home that night, I couldn't shake the fear creeping up my spine. I locked all the doors, checked all the windows, yet the feeling of being watched persisted. That night, I was jolted awake by a sound that froze my blood. It was laughter, the same laughter from the tent, both mechanical and terrifyingly human. My heart pounded as I turned on the bedside lamp, only to scream at the sight before me. There, at the foot of my bed, stood the robotic clown. Its painted face seemed even more grotesque in the dim light. Its smile twisted in a silent laugh, eyes glowing with that same malevolent light. From that day forward, my life turned into a nightmare. Every corner I turned, every room I entered, the clown was there. It was always watching, always laughing. My sanctuary, the carnival, had turned into my living nightmare. The joyous laughter of clowns, once music to my ears, was now a horrifying reminder of that summer evening. My life was consumed by fear, a fear born in a black tent at the edge of a carnival, a fear that came with a painted face, a manic grin, and a chilling laugh. Thank you for watching. If you like this content and would like more, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps bring more viewers like you.